That where you became afraid of dogs? She smiled sourly at me.
I have no idea where that came from. It's always just been there.
You're smart, though, Mahoney observed, returning his attention to the screen. King Saud University for 1 year, and then 4 years at Penn. Courtesy of the Saudi royal family. Impressive. Medical degree from Dubai, children, a career, and then a sudden radicalization. But that's what happens when God talks to you, right? She said nothing, rolled her eyes at me. Now, Mahoney said, where do you live in Saudi Arabia?
I do not live in Saudi Arabia.
And probably never will again, the FBI agent said brightly, still looking at his screen. I guess what I was asking was, oh, here it is. Fahik. It's right there outside Riyadh on the road to Mecca. For the first time since we'd been talking to Hala, I saw something resembling anxiety in her expression. Just a glimpse of it. And then she turned stony once more. I glanced at Mahoney, who seemed so confident now that I thought, what has Ned got on her? What about Fahik could break her? Chapter 91.
We no longer live in Fahik. We sold that house years ago, long before we came to this.
There was a transfer of property, Mahoney agreed. But it was a gift, not a sale, to Gabir Salman, who I believe is your uncle, the older brother of your mother, Shada. Something shifted in Hala. The coolness was gone. She studied the FBI agent the way a hawk might, and made no reply. It's right here in the Saudi records the embassy was good enough to send over by courier, he said. You want to see? No answer. Despite what you hear, Doctor, the Saudi royal family are, on the whole, keen allies of the United States, Mahoney went on. Why? They might have all the oil, but we have all the weapons, and God only knows how many times the number of soldiers. In any case, the Saudi royals find it most embarrassing when one of their nationals goes off the reservation and starts killing some of the country's best customers and friends. He paused and looked at me, almost cheery. Very cooperative, the Saudis. Mahoney held up his hand, set it down, looked back at Hala. Not a lot of political freedom back home, is there? Hala said nothing. Not a lot of wiggle room in the judicial system in Saudi, right? Sharia law? Secret police? Mahoney leaned forward, began talking louder. No constitutional guarantees of civil rights and humane treatment. What the Saudi royals want from their people, the Saudi royals get. Am I right, Dr. Al-Dasari?
So what? I am not in my homeland, and I think there is zero chance that your government extradites me.
I agree you are not in your homeland, nor are you likely to be anytime soon, Mahoney replied. He paused, glanced at me, then said to her, But your children are there. I immediately saw a change in her breathing pattern. Her respirations became shallow, more rapid. She straightened in her chair. What are their names? Mahoney asked. Oh, here it is. Fahd, 10. And Amina, 7. Good-looking kids. He smiled at her. The last time you spoke to them was when? Hala said nothing. Gotta be 10, 11 months. Mahoney let that hang as he started typing again. You use Skype, Dr. Al-Dasari?
No.
Amazing thing, he said, hitting return. You can look right into a compound on the other side of the world. He slid the computer to his left, where all of us could see it. Hala took one look and lunged at Mahoney. The chains caught her, but she strained hard against them, and she spit at him before hissing,
Allah will see you in hell for this, and my lawyers will see you in court.
Chapter 92. Mahoney raised his hand and said, You'll never see me in court because there will be no evidence of what you are about to witness, Dr. Al-Dasari, and I'll just have to take my chances with Allah. With my uneasiness building quickly toward horror, I studied the screen. A terrace and part of a beautiful garden where purple and red anemones grew tall and stood floppy in a wide section of grass. There was a table in the foreground with a plate of pastries on it and an icy pitcher of water, or perhaps lemonade. In the background to the right of the garden was a high, whitewashed wall. 2 hooded men holding AK-47s flanked 3 wrought-iron chairs that were pushed up against that wall, facing the camera. An older woman in traditional Arabic dress sat without her veil in the middle seat, tied to its arms and legs. She was gagged and looked petrified. A young girl sat to her left, an older boy to her right, each of them lashed to the chair and gagged as well. Hala glared at me.
You speak of fair? You let him do this to my mother, my children?
I had nothing to do with this, I said, turning to Mahoney. Stop this, Ned. I won't be part of this. I couldn't stop it if I wanted to, the FBI agent replied. This is not something we condone. It is not something we sought.
Liar! You can stop this.
Mahoney shook his head. No more than Al-Qaeda could stop its people from chopping off the head of that Wall Street Journal reporter. I have reason to believe these are Saudi secret policemen. The only people they take orders from are much higher up the food chain, men with mind-boggling power. In the hall, now, or you can forget my involvement, I said. I stood and went out the door. Mahoney followed me. Are those children going to be tortured? I asked. I don't know, my old friend said. It's out of my hands. You asked for this, I shouted. You said you were going to wake somebody up for God's sake. Turns out most of them were already up, Mahoney shot back. They were contacted by the Saudi government right about the time the good doctor was entering Union Station. The Saudis intercepted an encrypted email from 2 high-ranking members of the family earlier today. So far, they've been able to decipher only 3 words in the whole thing. Dasari, train, and gas. Chapter 93. Gas like car gas or gas like nerve gas? That's exactly what I'm about to find out, Alex, Mahoney said coldly. It's why the Saudis offered to create the little telecast in there. Ned, you still can't condone the torture. If the family is plotting some kind of gas attack in the United States, I will do everything in my power to prevent it, Mahoney said sharply. Does that include accepting help from a regime that does not give its citizens the same rights we have? Yes. I'll live with that if I can save even one American life. Now, you can come back in and help me so this goes only so far, or you can walk away and risk being partly responsible for the deaths of hundreds, maybe thousands of people. That's bullshit and unfair, I said. In situations like these, life is bullshit and unfair, Mahoney shouted, and then he lowered his voice. I need you, Alex. I need you to help me crack her so we can stop whatever she's got planned. I shook my head. There was no right answer here. Neither position was nobler than the other. Was I going to side with torture or with mass murder on the day after my dear Savior's birth? Before I could decide, we heard a scream from the interrogation room. Mahoney spun from me and went back in. I hesitated as I heard Hala scream,
No, please!
I entered the room feeling like a zombie, tired beyond reason and fearing that my soul might be permanently tarnished before the night was over. That sense was intensified when I saw what was happening on the screen. The hooded men had left Hala's mother where she was, gagged and tied to the chair against the wall. But they had brought the children's chairs close to the table, where they were looking wild-eyed at the camera. The secret policeman stood behind the children. One carried what looked like a heavy-duty marine battery hitched to jumper cables. The end of the black negative clamp was already attached to the metal chair Hala's son was sitting in. The second guy held the red clamp above it. Hala looked at me, enraged.
You cannot do this. He's a boy.
There were plenty of boys here in D.C. when you tried to poison the water supply, I said. But this doesn't have to happen, Doctor. You tell us about the gas attack, and we let your kids and Mom go on with their life without you.
I don't know what you're talking.
The hooded man barely grazed the back of her son's metal chair with the clamp. The boy's entire body jerked hard, and he began to scream and cry.
Fad! Be brave!
The boy seemed to hear her, but that only upset him more. He began to squirm and make noises like an animal with a broken leg. One of the men released the boy's gag, and he began to scream in Arabic. The translator said, "Mama! Mama! Why are they doing this to me?" Chapter 94. My stomach soured and turned. All sense of order in my brain had become disrupted. I thought of my son Ali in that situation and wanted to puke. I waited for Hala to break. A sob, a tear, anything. She turned away and looked at the wall, her jaw set. Mahoney reached over, hit the mute button on the computer and said, "This can end right now if you tell us about the gas." She said nothing. "Turn the camera on us," I said. "Let Fad see us and her." Mahoney snapped a couple of buttons, and a small image of the interrogation room appeared in one corner of the screen. "Fad," I said, "can you hear me? Can you see your mother?" Hala was trying not to glance at the screen. The boy's hysterics had slowed, but when he saw his mother, they began again. "They are everywhere in the house," he sobbed. "Men and women everywhere, in the washrooms and the pantry and the servants' quarters." Hala spoke coldly to him.
That is why I have always taught the two of you that the most important thing in life is bravery.
"Listen, Fad," I said. "Sometimes bravery has nothing to do with guns or pain or bullets. Sometimes bravery is just doing the right thing. And at this moment, the right thing would be to help us so we can help you. Please ask your mother to tell us what we need to know so we can keep everyone safe. And then those people there can go home." I turned my head toward Hala, who looked at me with utter hatred. One of the men released the gag on her daughter. They'd moved behind her with the battery and cables. "Tell them what they want, Mama," Fad said. "Tell them, or they're going to hurt Amina." The girl began to squirm, trying to look back over her shoulder to see what the men were doing. They had the black clamp already affixed behind her. The red clamp was inches from joining it.
I cannot tell them my secrets, because they are evil men,
Hala said to her son. "Mama, please help! Please!" Amina cried. The hooded man snapped the red clamp to the metal chair, and the girl stiffened and arched toward the camera, straining every muscle in her face, wanting to scream, but utterly unable to do it. Her brother was screaming for her, petrified that the men would return to him. I wanted to cry when they took the clamp off the chair, and the girl collapsed into hysterics. Sweat soaked the armpits of Hala's jail jumpsuit. It had begun to form on her upper lip, too. But otherwise, she was back to that warrior expression that revealed nothing. "Mom," Fad said. He hiccuped. "Please, help us." "Help them, Doctor," Mahoney said. The hooded men moved back behind her son, who began craning his neck around, whimpering and begging his captors to stop as they clamped the negative line